Today we talk about betting for value with the micros. This is sometimes called betting your set, which is what we did. Even though I'm trying to remember, did we hit a set in this session? I think we did. Hold, bet your set. Let's just start there. Hello and welcome to another session of Exceptional Video. Today I'm playing some $5 zone poker. Had a request from a blog reader to do this, so we're going to play. You'll notice here on the left side, I'm already up to $6.50. My normal MO when I do these videos is to get my table set up and everything, and I do that by playing a single hand and sitting out the next so that I've got the tables preloaded and so on. And then I fire up my screen recording software and then start the video. Well, the very first hand of this session, I'm going to check here the king queen. Got the gut shot. Guy's not going anywhere, so he's got a piece of this is not going away, or he's got a pair of 8s or 7s or something like that. Anyway, my normal MO is to get everything all fired up and then start my screen recording software. And as I said, the very first hand on the left table here, I had ace-4 of hearts, and was in the big blind. Naturally, is where you start out, and there was a raise under the gun, which means I'm going to fold usually. But then there were 3 callers, and I hate to use the expression, but I was priced in. I was priced in to see a flop, and of course picked up the nut flush draw, and there was a little tiny min bet the under the gun guy made. Everybody else folded. It was on me, and I was priced in basically to see a turn card, which I did. Hit the flush, and long story short, I'm up to up $1.50 or so before we even get started here. So I'm c-betting the ace-10 suited on this board. Jacks, he didn't go away to my first bet. I'm going to fire a second barrel and then give up over here if this guy doesn't go away. So anyway, I'm off to a pretty good start. Yeah, it's $5 tables, so it's not going to make much meaningful impact to or from my bankroll, but I do want to play good poker and basically demonstrate how you beat these $5 tables. So I'm going to watch the time. It's 1 o'clock my time in the afternoon on a Friday. Okay, here I got a gut shot, overcard, backdoor flush draw. I've got to take a stab at this. I got to be careful though. It's a little bit of a wet board. We picked up a lot of equity here. I'm now double gutted, and I've got the backdoor flush draw, so I'm probably not too afraid actually to get the money in here. Pretty happy on this this here. I'm just going to go ahead and fire. If I bet too much, the guy's not probably going to call, so I'm going to bet about this amount. I would have preferred to get stacks in, but as you can see, he folded there. So I think he had a queen or something along those lines, or maybe a open-ended straight draw, and wasn't going anywhere, and then missed on the river. Or if he had a queen, it just got a little too scary for him to continue. That's why I was betting a little bit small there. You've got to put your opponents on a range. Even if it's wrong, you've got to start doing it. And you're going to be wrong a lot when you first start to hand read. But in these situations, you've got to look at, when you're a beginner, the way to do this is really to look at board texture. Look at the type of player you're up against and their position, and you start with a hand range there. But then you really fine tune it with board texture and their actions. And that's, a huge fraction of what they're doing. I'm going to go ahead and fire again here. I had top pair on the flop. This guy came along. I've got 2 pair now. I'm betting. The issue is if he's got a set of 3s or something like that, he's going to re-raise me. So I've got to bet for value there for sure. He had he ended up rivering 2 pair, but he had bottom pair or middle pair on the flop and just wasn't going away, which you'll see a lot at the $5 tables here. Bluffing is not where you're going to make most of your money. You do have to bluff some, and this is a little bit of a misconception about the low stakes and micro stakes. And I've even blogged about this, and maybe in a misleading term, because but not really. Let me explain. At the micro stakes, most of your money is going to come from value. It's when you hit your sets and your two pairs and your flushes and your straights and things like that, and you get paid off. That's where the bulk of your money is going to come from. But you're also going to make a fair bit of money from c-betting flops, one barrel on the flop and then maybe double barreling on turns. And the way you're going to do that is you've got to put your opponent on a range. You've got to say, what kind of hands does he have here in his range? And I use he, I know there's she. I got actually a little bit of an angry email from a reader who said, you're always saying he, the villain is he. And I apologize if that offends you, but sorry, it's just, the phrase I use, and I don't mean anything by it. But you've got to put the villain on a range, and you then have to look at the board texture and whether the board texture hits that person's range or not. And if it does, then don't c-bet. If it doesn't, then fire away. Here I'm c-betting, but I'm c-betting for value. I've got middle pair. Yes, he could have a 10 in his range. There's a lot of jack 10s and those kind of hands in his range there that he called my open with their preflop. But there's also an awful lot of hands that don't hit that board. So you've got to fire, and you've got to take a stab a lot of times. Okay, here we've got a limp. The fact that this guy re-raised, this is one of those hands that a lot of beginners will go ahead and play here. If you are going to play this, and sometimes it's okay, you want to re-raise. I'm trying to teach good basic habits here, ABC poker, so that a fold is the right play, is the quote-unquote standard play there. It's the right thing to do. Yes, you're going to have position, but you're up against a guy who's showing a lot of strength, and your ace, if you hit an ace, it's very easy that you could be dominated here. So I'm going to let this thing, I'm going to check here. This is kind of an interesting spot. I don't think he has an ace, to be honest. I'm not going to bluff, but he limped pre-flop. That's why we saw a flop there in the big blind. And then he had that little tiny, almost a probe bet on the flop there with the ace. I probably could have raised and taken that down. If we were at higher stakes, 25 NL, for example, I probably would have re-raised there. Here, the ace-queen is probably the best hand. We had this min open from a good player. He's got 19 bucks in his stack, almost $20 in his stack, so he knows what he's doing. Going to go ahead and bet the ace-jack here for value. This guy came along with nothing, so our ace-queen is probably the best hand. I'm raising for value there, and I'm perfectly happy that they all folded, so that's okay too. Okay, hearts got there. I'm going to check behind, and now, any heart, a deuce of hearts has us crushed here, so... and we're getting $5 into 83. I've got to make the call just to see what the guy has. Yeah, okay, so he had it all the way. And that was a decent-sized bet for him because he priced us in. Even 10 cents, I'm probably not coming along. I'm going to go ahead and fire on the nines here. And probably have the best hand. I don't want him to see any more cards. So King 10 suited on the button facing an open limp from the cutoff. This is an isolation raise for value. I've probably got the best hand. This does not hit his range. Pretty dry board. Yeah, there's some backdoor, maybe he's got diamonds or, he's got a pair of fives and doesn't believe us here. But this is a two-barrel situation for sure. So I'm going to fire a second barrel. And if he sticks around, then I am done. I'm done with this situation. And, nothing got there. We didn't get there, but lots of other things did get there is what I'm saying. So I'm not firing the next, And so he had a pair and was just not going. So again, you got to put your opponent on a hand. Or not a hand, but a range, sorry, and act accordingly. Their two barrels was the proper play, but certainly not the river because he was proving to us he's not going away, and he says he's got something. He's got a piece of that flop, or he's got, something that he considers strong enough to continue. And his pair of sevens there is what fell into that range. Now, we're at a zone table here, so I'm not going to see that player again or know who he is necessarily. We were at a regular cash game table, a full ring or a six max regular cash. I would make note of that and say, look, he gets sticky. He's not somebody that I can bluff, at least on dry boards. Okay, here, I'm going to go ahead and fire for sure. It's a little tricky. It's hard for him to continue without a spade in his hand. He, very, very rarely does he have two spades. Wow. Okay, so we got re-raised. I'm going to go ahead and call. I don't put him on an actual made flush. Usually players wait till the turn to try to get their money in, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bet for value here. I think he's got a spade in his hand, and and unfortunately he just got there. If he's got, and he most likely has a better spade, so I'm going to check behind. And wow, he had two pair. Okay, so again, on this player, I'd make note that, those 4 to a spade on the board did not discourage him. So again, a sticky player. I'm raising the ace-king off here for value. I'm going to have the button. This is a pretty good situation to have have big slick. Okay, so Jack 10, I'm just going to call here just as a little bit of a wing, but I'm not getting married to this by any manner of means. Okay, so pretty dry board. Pretty hard for one of these guys to continue without a queen in their hand. So I can go ahead and fire pretty easily into there and just take down that pot as a pure bluff. I think I misplayed this hand over here because I was paying attention to this one. I'm not going to put any more money in. There's arguments for calling there because I've got a gut shot and 2 overcards, but the board had paired, and I just was not paying enough attention. And that's the problem with playing 2 tables. I'm a pretty good poker player. If you're watching this to learn $5 zone, I don't mean this as a brag or anything, but I'm probably a better player than you. And it's still hard for me to keep track of 2 tables and talk and so on. So what I'm trying to say here is I suggest that you open a single table until you kind of prove that you can win very consistently for, many weeks in a row, win 2 out of every 3 sessions you sit down for, say, a month in a row, solid. Until you can do that, just keep one table open. And once you're comfortable and are kind of proven that you're winning a single table, then open a second table. I typically play, when I'm playing for myself, not recording or teaching or whatever, I'm typically playing 100 NL, sometimes 200 NL. And I've got between 4 and 6 tables open. And I have to really concentrate. And more to the point, I can only maintain that concentration. I'm an old guy. I'm in my mid-50s. I really can't maintain my A-game concentration for more than 30 or 40 minutes. So I actually typically set a Pomodoro timer. Those of you who might have heard that term. It's Italian for tomato, a tomato timer. I set it for 25 minutes. And I play really focused, door closed, my focus music on. I've done all my pregame preps. I've done all those things, and at the end of that half an hour, that end of that 25 minutes, I'm pretty wasted. That's pretty tough for me, and that's my point. Is that poker's hard. Poker takes concentration. It takes a lot of focus. A lot of brain power. You're spending a lot of time thinking through situations and putting players on ranges and doing the whole metagame thing and trying to make the best decisions and doing pot odds calculations in your head and implied odds calculations and a lot of that stuff. Yeah, we got the walk with the kings, unfortunately. And it takes mental energy. Yeah, it burns a lot of energy. And even if you're a beginning player and you're playing a single table of 5 NL zone like this, you should be concentrating and doing pot odds and putting players on ranges and doing all those things. And I expect you to be totally worn out after that half an hour or hour or whatever it is that is sort of your upper limit of maintaining an A-game concentration. Again, for me, it's like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, somewhere around there. When I'm multi-tabling, when I've got 5 or 6 tables of 100 NL open, and I'm working hard. That's tough. Okay, here on the left, we have an under the gun open from a relatively deep stack. He's more than 100 big blinds deep. This is perfect for set mining. He's got, in his range are a lot of hands like aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, and so on. So the implied odds we're getting are fantastic. Now, we've gone ahead and hit. It's a wet board, so I've got to go ahead and fire. I can't let him see a free flop. He's got queens, and I can't let a queen come out on the turn without making him pay to see it. So I'm betting for value there as the primary reason, but I'm betting also to protect. I'm probably going to get hate mail and say, I should have slow played there, but no, absolutely not. Too scary of a board, too wet. I've got the bottom set, lots of ways somebody can outdraw me on the turn or the river, and it's a fatal flaw in poker for you to not bet your set. That was a mantra I used to. A friend of mine, Mr. Multi, and I used to bounce back and forth off each other. Bet your set, bet your set. No fancy play syndrome. Bet your set means not necessarily you don't have to have a set. Just if you have a strong hand, bet it. And so that's the right play. Bet. And if he folds, he wasn't going to pay me off anyway. If he calls, I am getting value out of my hand. He's putting more money in the pot. And I'm charging him for a draw. That board, I forget, it was 4, 5, 7. I think it was. I'd have to go back and look. So if he's got a 6, he's open-ended. There's a lot of draws there if he's got overcards. You just don't it's a sin to let your opponent see a free card. So going to go ahead and bet the 10s here. Hard to put him on an ace where he just called. If he does stick around, then he very well could have an ace or a heart draw or something like that. So I'm betting again for value here because I think I've got the best hand. The fact that he re-raised me, he bet pretty big. It's very much in his range to have a draw here. But I'm going to let it go. Again, I want you guys to learn ABC poker, and ABC micro stakes poker is caution. Caution, caution, caution. Fold if you don't really know what you're up against, or if there's any question in your mind, just fold. Just fold and move on to the next hand. That's online poker. Live poker, you're going to get another hand in a minute or two. Online regular poker, you're going to get another hand in 20, 30 seconds. Zone poker, you're going to get another hand in about 2 seconds. And it's so easy just to fold and try to get pick a better spot. Pick a spot where you're much more sure of where you're at. So I'm going to go ahead and bet here as a semi-bluff. I've got, there's a gut shot we've got and a flush draw. So actually we're double gutted. A 9 gets us there, right? So I'm betting as a strong semi-bluff with a lot of equity there. So, but again, I'm reading the board texture, and that's the name of the game. You don't have to overcomplicate a $5 zone. Really put your opponents on basic hands. The raise under the gun here, if he was 1 or 2 seats more to the left, I might re-raise him. I'm just going to let the ace jack go. A7 off, early position is a fold. Big slick, obvious open raise here for value. Let the king 5 suited go. So anyway, it's Friday. I've got the day off, which is kind of nice. It's, I forget what they call this, spring day or something. I forget what they call it here. But I had the day off, and it's going to be a long weekend. I'm giving a talk tomorrow. There's a local community group that's asked me to give a presentation on our project at work. We're building this big giant solar telescope in Hawaii. It's kind of it's interesting stuff, and I get these requests a lot to give talks. And as part of my project management hat that I wear at work, I have to do a lot of these community outreach kind of things. So giving a talk tomorrow morning. It's kind of a standard one I give. I dusted it off and updated some of the pictures, but it's basically, why what are we building, and why should they, as taxpayers, care that $350 million of their taxpayer dollars are going towards this big 10-year project that I'm doing. So it's kind of a fun little talk. So I'm doing that. We re-raised here. The question is, do I call? Folding's out of the question. Yes, he could have aces or kings, but almost certainly I've got the best hand, so I'm going to bet for value. If all the money goes in here and he turns over aces, God bless him. But more often than not, he's got jacks or tens or ace-jack or something like that. And we are a coin flip or well ahead of him. And even in coin flips, there's dead money now out there. There's money that we've already put in and he's put in. So the expected value of re-raising and getting it in with a quote-unquote coin flip is actually plus EV for us, even though it's a 50-50 equity situation. I'll let the 8-6 go. Going to raise the ace-jack off as a ISO. This is a short stack, probably bad player. And so I'm ISO raising, but the isolation didn't work because I got cold called by this guy. Here I'm going to raise the fives, actually. And we're 4 away on a pretty wet board. I've got to just check this back. I've got to give up here. There's lots of ways that I'm beat here. Pretty wet board. Yeah, I got a gut shot, but I'm not putting any more money in this. If I'm heads up with this guy, for sure I'm taking another stab at it. Okay, I'm betting the fives for value here. Pretty dry board. I'm gonna let this one go. Picked up a backdoor flush draw. Gonna check it behind here. No sense. I'm not gonna get called by worse. I'm not gonna get called by worse if I bet. So. Anyway, so I give that talk tomorrow. Today I got up this morning and we finished up the big pool project where I drained it this week and acid washed it and repaired some plaster and replaced the sand in my sand filter and fixed some leaks in the plumbing. I still have to get a couple of things going with the what they call the creepy, this device that goes around inside the pool and kind of scrubs the bottom. Let the ace-9 off go. But for the most part, it's working pretty well. The water looks just sparkling blue. It's really, really nice. Okay, again, bet your set. There's flush draws and there's straight draws out. I am not going to let him draw without paying to see the next card. So I'm betting my set, and no fancy play syndrome. A lot of beginners they feel, well, if I check here, he's just going to fold. Well, he's going to fold anyway. And now we've got the best hand for sure. We're pretty, he could have a pair of nines, sure. We could be up against quads, but almost certainly we are good. And so we're betting for value here, and we're trying to maximize. He didn't go away on the flop, so he may not go away here. And so I'm going to try to extract some value. I might have bet a little bit too big here. I might be chasing him out. Fine, we'll get it in, buddy. That sounds good to me. And, he's drawing dead. And again, so value. We're at the micro stakes. People will pay you off. Trying to bluff somebody off, let's say he's trying to bluff me off there. Let's say he's crazy. He's at the micros. He doesn't know that I'm a decent player. Okay, very wet board here. I'm not putting any more money in. I can't get somebody to fold even a jack here. He needs to be betting for value, not as a bluff, as should you at these stakes. You're going to make your money by waiting for those good situations. Yes, you're going to see bets and bluff flops and turns a fair bit, and keep up with the blinds and maybe a little bit plus on the blind side. But the bulk of your money is going to come from situations like that where you have the nuts and you get paid off. And one of the secrets to getting paid off is to bet. Don't get tricky. Don't try to entice somebody in. Okay, here, 63 cents. These guys are too short for me to set mine. Basically, nope, I'm done. If they were both, we're pretty deep here. We're 220 big blinds deep or something like that. I mean, we're very deep. But the effective stack size is the smaller of the two, of yours and your villain stacks. And against the one player, he had $4 and the other guy had $1 something. So we are not deep enough to set mine. We're not getting implied odds. So we let it go. Again, caution is a better part of valor here. This to me feels like a steal. So I'm going to re-raise, and if he three bets us or something, we're done. But it feels a lot like he's betting, trying to take down the blinds, and I've got a pretty strong hand, so I'm re-raising for value there, kind of as a semi-bluff, is probably a better way to describe it. I've got a hand that could easily be the best. He could have ace-8, something like that. It could turn into the best, but I have a fair bit of fold equity there too. So I'm going to go ahead and just fire, and I'm perfectly happy with that result, as should you. So that's a bluff, which, as I just finished saying, is not where the bulk of your money's coming from. But you'll notice I didn't get a lot of money invested there. If he had re-raised, I'm giving up. I'm not going to, my ego is not so big that I can't just say, okay, you got me, I'm folding. Okay, so queens here. We raise, got two calls. Hard to put these guys on kings when they're just calling pre-flop. So I'm going to go ahead and bet. If I get re-raised here, I'm in a bit of a pickle. But I've got to bet for value because they could easily have nines or ace-10 or something like that here. Okay, it's going to be interesting to see what he does here on the turn. If he fires into us... I think I have to peel one card and see what he does here on the river. He could have a king, and that's why he called so quickly on the flop. He could have a weak king, king 9, something like that. And I am... Okay, so the right play is to fold. I'm going to go ahead and call to demonstrate what he has here. So let's see. Yeah, he had a weak king, and he ended up with a rivering the 10. But that's why the right play is to fold there. Poker you should not be guessing where you're at. If you think the guy has you beat, and it's most likely he does, just fold. Now, I called there... in all honesty, out of curiosity again, because these are stakes much lower than my normal stakes, and it's this is a problem with playing too low for yourself. Actually, is that you tend to make bad calls like that. But the main reason, to be perfectly honest, is I want to show you that when I'm saying he's probably got a king and I should fold here, well, let's demonstrate that. Yes, he does have a king. That's why he called so quickly on the flop there. And then led into us on the river, or on the turn, and donked into us again on the river. So maybe even I should have folded on the turn. That might have been a mistake on my part, even to call on the turn. It's given us a pretty good price though to continue. And sometimes you do see bizarre bluffy behavior at these stakes, but that's not where your money should come from. Your money should come from wait for the big value hands. Bet them hard, build big pots, get paid off. Yes, you'll get bad beaten occasionally at these stakes because these players play any two, and they're going to get lucky and runner and suck out and all that good stuff. Okay, here we had an open under the gun for 15 cents. I don't think that raising here is actually going to squeeze these guys out. I am going to call because I have the button. Folding is perfectly fine here. The fact that I've got the button is the only reason that I'm calling here. I'm a believer in raise or fold most of the time, but I'm not sure if raising there is actually going to get all three of those guys to fold. So maybe even again, folding is probably the right play. Calling is not terrible because you're getting such an amazing price to call. But you got to really be able to play post-flop poker there. If we hit a king or we hit a jack, we've got to be really careful. Now, the good news, and the only reason I called there with the suited king jack, is I had the button, and that is worth a lot. The rule is that I tend to play by is I'm looking for excuses to call on the button or to play my cards on the button. And I'm looking for any excuse to fold in early position. So I'm looking for reasons to call in late and excuses to call on the button. And look at this, we won with 10 deuce off. And that's because these guys weren't betting into us and basically driving us off the pot. Okay, we've got a gut shot here on a pretty scary board. It's really hard for him to have, to continue unless he's at least got a heart in his hand. But again, the power of position. I've got position here so I can bet and bluff, and that is a bluff at the micros. That's easy to make. But again, I'm reading board texture, and I'm saying this is a scary board. Even a bad player can recognize that this is a scary board. And yes, at the micros, there's lots of bad players. So very scary board. Only way he's continuing there, if I see bet into him, is if he's got a piece of it. And very rarely does he have a heart, and even more rare does he have a made flush. So that's a pretty easy continuation bet. If he continues and another heart comes out, we are done with that hand. If he continues and another heart does not come out, 2 overcards, I'm done with this hand here. Okay, so we bet, we got re-raised. They're just about deep enough for us to set mine here with our 8s. Excuse me. And again, very short stacked, so generally not deep enough effectives, but he bet so small, he min-raised there. I think he's got queens or something like that, because it was a min-raise and he wants us to stay in the pot, which is a mistake too, because he's pricing us in to set mine against him, and then he's married to his hand if he does have queens or kings or aces or something there. Min-raises are useless. Do not min-raise. That's another lesson for today. A min-raise, remember you raise for 2 reasons. One, to get a worse hand to call, and another to get a better hand to fold. And a min-raise will accomplish neither one of those things. So next big blind, I'm going to click the sit out the next big blind button, and then we'll wrap up this session. I'm going to let the queen 7 off go. Okay, we've got overcards here, very dry board. We probably have the best hand, and I'm going to go ahead and bet. The fact that he stuck around, we picked up a gut shot to the 5. I'm going to go ahead and fire again. Yeah, I'm going to fire again and see if I can drive him off. Here we picked up the flush draw, second nut flush draw, and so I'm semi-bluffing here. We get re-raised by this guy. Again, we're done. We're not going to make poker hard for ourselves. So, all right, so I'm going to click sit out the next big blind here. And then as soon as the big blind comes around here, I'm going to do the same thing over here. And what this does is I'm paying the big blind, but it's giving me the most number of hands for the cost of that big blind. If I just sit out the next hand kind of arbitrarily, I'm losing a little bit of expected value in the price that I'm paying for my my big blinds. Again, it's a very small effect, but it's a good habit. And over a year of playing poker, it might add up to a buy-in or so. So it's it's these little edges, little things that you've got to exploit that makes the difference. I'm going to raise the king jack suited under the gun. We've got top pair with a pretty good kicker. He's donking into us. I think I'm just going to call. We've almost certainly got the best hand now. And so we are going to raise for value, and we're going to raise kind of big because there are some draws out now. He's got king jack, king 10, something like that. I do not want him to see a free card or a cheap card. I want to give him bad odds. So anyway, I hope your game's been pretty good. I'm going to be doing some coaching. I got a new student I'm picking up in a couple of weeks. I had a guy planned for this week, and he kind of bailed on me at the last minute. He had a personal emergency happen. But I got a guy that I'm picking up week after next. This coming week, I'm in Hawaii on work for the whole week. It promises to be a rough, long week. Okay, we've got 3 at a heart. I'm going to let this one go. So there was kind of a window of opportunity to open up, and a long-time reader that's been following the blog for a while contacted me and said he's been struggling at the $5 zone tables. And so in part, that's why I'm doing the $5 zone today. Reality is another reader asked me to do it, but kind of looking forward to doing another student. I've been typically averaging a student a month, and having really good success lately with their results. So it's always fun to take somebody who's struggling, work with them for 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 sessions, and turn them into a winning player. It's a lot of fun. And that should be it here. They should be sitting us out. So, okay, so that is the end. Anyway, value, value, value. Bet your set, bet your set, bet your set. If you've got a big hand, bet it. Don't try to bluff these guys off of very wet boards and off of situations where the board has hit their range or they're sticky and they're not going away after one street, even on a scary board. Just give up. Quit bluffing. At the $100 tables, where I tend to frequent for my normal game, you can bluff a lot more. And in a sense, the players are quote unquote good enough to be bluffed. That's a weird expression, but it's one you'll hear. Down here, they're not good enough to be bluffed. A lot of times they're unaware of board texture. They're not putting you on ranges, things like that. And bluffing you're not going to get them off the hand. On the other hand, when the board is like all hearts, like that one situation, and it's checked to you, well, by all means bet, because they can't continue without at least a heart in their hand. As I said, even the worst players, and the $5 tables down here are just rife with bad players. Even the bad players can recognize a flush on the board and are terrified of it. Even the worst players can recognize an ace on the board and are terrified of that unless they've got an ace in their hand. So, one and done kind of bluff C-bets are perfectly fine, and you're going to make some money off of that, and you're going to keep the pressure on, and you're going to just keep doing that to recoup the blinds and to make a little bit of money and get ahead. But again, the bulk of your money at these micro-stakes games should be from value. It's when you make two pair or better, or top pair, top kicker, or a set, or big flush draw where you've got a lot of equity and overcards and a flush draw or something like that. Bet for value. Absolutely bet for value. And that's the secret to beating these games. In any case, thanks for joining us. It's been another fun session, and I'll see you on the felt. Tschüss.